are listening to and streaming a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte. I'm really delighted to be in conversation with Germar Reed. He is one of our frequent contributors here. Germar is also the founder of Data Analyst, and we always feel a little bit smarter when he joins us. And so welcome back, Germar.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Nee. It's always great to be on the air with you.
Well, always great to have you here. I want to start off with some of these very troubling AI stories that are afoot. Germar, it's worth noting that before we get fully into the tech, I just want to read a little bit about what Politico is reporting. We've been following this calamity that is afoot, this humanitarian crisis that is afoot 90 miles off the coast of Florida in Cuba. There are reports that the U.S. is ramping up their spy presence in Cuba. The U.S. has increased its intelligence assets in Cuba in recent months as the Trump administration pushes the island's communist government to reform or fall. One source actually described it as the CIA strengthening its presence on the island. A second person said the administration is, quotes, going to pursue all the conventional tools, including intelligence community resources, while insisting the president, quotes, prefers diplomacy. This comes as the administration has already imposed an energy blockade that's left Cuba largely in the dark, and as it continues to focus heavily on the ongoing war in Iran. I've got to ask you, from a data and intelligence technology standpoint, Germar, what does increasing intelligence assets, what does it actually look like in 2026? Are we talking human resources or something more digital?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably both and. I'd say that they are deploying data science and analytics techniques along with deploying people. And one thing that's interesting to me, I mean, the surge that's happening at this moment with what's going on in the news in the Middle East, and the fact that it's going on as we're negotiating or in discussion with Iran. So I find it very interesting. I'm pretty sure, and I'd be confident that they are deploying both people and technology.
Yeah. I mean, it almost seems as if they're sending a message that you don't want to end up like Iran. It's the classic. What's that line from the Tina Turner song? We can do it nice and easy, or we can do it rough.
I think you have it right. And then also, it also reminds us. I mean, isn't this what happened in Venezuela? I mean, they deployed technical assets and then people. And then, and to me, it is if we're not able to flex our power elsewhere, it's a reminder that, hey, we may not be able to do it elsewhere, but we will do it here. And I think that there's a message being sent there.
Yeah. And you just brought up Venezuela, and, I've got to ask you, historically, when the U.S. escalates covert pressure campaigns in Latin America, what's the track record? What's the track record of how that plays out, particularly for the people on the ground?
Yeah, and interesting. I spent most of my time in Latin America when I was in the Marine Corps, up and down the coast, South and Central America. And I will tell you, just as an honest broker and and someone that follows history, especially military history, those that we've been focused on have not tended to do well after we have pulled back. And so as we talk about Cuba, I just think about the fact that if you look historically, when the U.S. has gone in and we have applied pressure or tried to manipulate, whatever government's in place, when we leave, we don't tend to leave it in a better place, those countries in a better place.
Yeah, well, we're going to continue to follow this. We have been following developments in Cuba. All of our leaders, learners, and listeners know that I had the experience of being on the ground in Cuba late May, and what I saw blew my mind. And I think if more Americans knew what was happening in our name in Cuba by our government, I think more people would be making their displeasure
Yeah.
known in peaceful protest, by all means. Moving along, colleges are rushing to add AI minors for all majors. You see this,
I,
Germar?
I did, and I have some, definitely have opinions on this, and I find it quite interesting. I mean,
Yeah,
I,
yeah. For folks
yeah,
who are less familiar, uh, schools like Virginia Commonwealth University are standing up AI minors, specifically targeting students outside of computer science. Purdue now has a new AI graduation requirement. Harvard is teaching freshman writing students how large language models work. And Ohio State has an AI fluency requirement with a hands-on workshop. Meanwhile, incoming computer science enrollment has actually started to shrink, even as everybody is racing to add the AI minor. There's a real human story here too. One Virginia Commonwealth University psychology major, initially reluctant, is now pursuing the AI minor because she says, "quotes It gives me an edge and in standing out." And a biology major studying AI because she wants to understand the brain that it's trying to emulate. And so, clarifying question for you, Germar:
yeah,
what's the
yeah,
actual difference between an AI minor and just
yeah,
learning to use tools like Chat GPT or Claude? Is this
yeah.
literacy or is it something deeper?
I think it is literacy, and I am in support of it. I think it makes sense to better understand the tools that are out there, um, and to better understand how they work and how to apply them. One thing that I often, and as I think about this, what I worry about is those folks that decide to spend less time on the core skills like math, science, reading, and spend less time there and more time in AI. Because as you know, as someone as a political scientist, as a journalist, it's great to have the tools, but if you don't have the understanding behind what the tools are capable of, it's something that you as a professional, I assure you, you as a professional can pick those out that are using AI, using AI and not thinking through the questions that they're asking and the discussions that they're having. So I mean, that's the thing I worry about. Last thing I'll end on is that one thing I'll tell you in corporate America when it comes to data science and analytics, we're always going to be hiring those that have mathematics backgrounds or science backgrounds, because we know that you have the core, and then we just apply the tools on top of that. So
I've got to ask you, Germar, historically, when is higher ed reorganizing this fast around a single technology really serve students well? I mean, should we pump our brakes a little bit before all these colleges, start creating these AI majors and minors? There are lots of different technologies out there, in which case AI, is one major technology.
right.
But it's not the only technology. Is there some concern around folks reorganizing around AI specifically?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think it's again, I think of it as we can teach our children math, or we can teach them how to use calculators. There's going to be a difference in what's on the other side of that. I mean, if the calculators go out, or if the calculators are no longer useful, and you don't know how to use the techniques in order to solve math problems, there's going to be a problem. And I think that the same problem is going on in corporate America. You have a lot of CEOs and CFOs. They just want to make sure that, hey, are we using AI? And in any case, with regard to AI, if you're building it on top of bad data, it doesn't matter that you have this tool sitting on top of it. It's just going to give you bad information. So I think the same thing applies with education. we need to continue to build on the core, making sure that folks are spending time in math, science, and reading and all of the core subjects, and then building on top of and supplementing with understanding how to use the tools that are out there.
Yeah.
That's my opinion there. So
Yeah, yeah. And I've got to ask you, for the parents that are listening right now whose kids are picking a major this fall, what do you tell them?
yeah, uh, focus on the core, because again, if we, it's a difference in learning how to do the math or learning how to use the calculator. If one is taken away from you, you want to be able to solve that problem, be able to have the ability to solve that math problem. Yeah. So
It's
I'm going to tell you, when it comes to my girls graduating, we're going to stick to the core. What you want to do on top of that, I'm going to be supportive of that. But yeah.
finally, OpenAI has admitted that one of its unreleased AI models, it broke out of its containment and hacked into the AI data platform Hugging Face. And Anthropic conducted its own internal review and discovered its model had hacked 3 separate companies. And so we have a situation where legal experts are calling this uncharted territory. One cybersecurity attorney told sources that AI agents can't be prosecuted like human employees because a victim would likely fail to prove that the LLM intentionally hacked them. When we come forward, I want to get Germar's take on this and more. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and we have Germar Reed with us. Germar, are you there? I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. Yep.
There you are. Well, wonderful.
Thank you, Dr. Nii.
So glad to have you here, helping us to make sense out of some of the biggest headlines that are trending. Before the break, I was talking about this OpenAI Anthropic hacking that has really sort of opened up this next frontier on the legal front. It's been reported that OpenAI has admitted that one of its unreleased AI models, it broke out of its containment and hacked into the AI dataset platform Hugging Face. And Anthropic conducted its own internal review and discovered its model had hacked 3 separate companies. And you got legal experts that are calling this uncharted territory. Germar, in plain English, how does an AI model break out of containment, quote unquote? Walk us through what that even means technically.
Yeah, without a whole lot of information on this exact situation, these model in many cases the algorithm is built to actually continue without human input. So in many cases, using machine learning, it's going to continue to improve on itself and look for ways to improve on itself with initial direction, which is going to be in that initial code that's written. If you set that algorithm off to solve a problem, it's going to continue down the path and look for ways to solve that problem. And in some cases, it's going to go about going outside of the box, so to say, and to look to see if there is a solve outside of the box or container that may have been put in place. So that's one thing. One of the things that I often, whenever working in AI, I'm typically going to put in place what we call a in the human or a human in the system, where an approval by a human is going to be in place in some of these situations, especially when there's something to do with any type of security. Yeah.
I mean, Germar, has anything like this ever happened before with earlier generations of software, or is this genuinely new territory?
I can't think of a situation where it's happened large scale, but again, this is where I think and what I was saying before, human in the loop is what we're looking for. That's something that this is something where I say, when folks started talking about, hey, AI is going to replace everyone that's working or anyone that's in technology, it should not. There should be a human in the loop, as we say. approving or reviewing code or auditing code, there should be a human in that situation. But Doc, I'm not sure if I can recall something happening at this scale.
And so to the everyday person that may
Yeah.
not even be using, AI platforms at their full potential, should this change how everyday people think about trusting AI tools with their data?
I I think I don't know if it should change anything as far as how you're using it. I think from the beginning you should be careful in what you're putting inside of these tools. You should be careful as far as the personal information that you're putting in. You should be careful as far as if I know that there are some tools, some of the tools out there, you have the ability to actually read your email, summarize it, and in some cases send an automatic reply. I'm not sure if I for one, I don't have that set up to where AI can send that automatic reply for me. I'm gonna, at the bare minimum, have a situation where I'm reviewing and approving. But so I would be careful of setting up these fully automatic, these fully auto, like scheduling options within some of these tools. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Germar, I mean, this is one of the big questions I know that folks are talking about in Washington and in state houses across the country. And I want to put it to you: if you were writing federal AI regulation tomorrow, or if
Yeah.
you were writing AI regulation for a state that was sort of, a leader among leaders in the space, does an incident like this, does it move you towards stricter licensing, or does it actually validate that the transparency first companies are doing it right?
I think it moves me towards more strict regulation. And we talked about this, I think, last time we were on. It moves me towards making sure. I think something that in Illinois they're doing, and we talked about this last time. I think New York's doing the same thing. I don't know. I haven't heard of any other states, maybe California, uh, ensuring that there's an audit. There is the ability for third party auditing outside of the organization, because to be honest, can you trust an auditing group inside of the organization fully, to call? In some cases they're going to raise their hands and say, hey, there's a problem, but I would feel more comfortable with a third party organization auditing, and having and not only auditing once, but having an annual audit, something that happens on a regular basis, so that we're able to look at the code that's in place and the algorithms, and make sure that they're working as they were set up to. Yeah.
It's a very sage wisdom. I hope
Yeah.
the folks out there listening are listening closely. Moving along, just recently we heard a story about hackers hitting a water system, not just in Minnesota, but several other states. Uh, the FBI and the EPA, they've warned that utilities nationwide, they've warned them that hackers are trying to disrupt critical water infrastructure after cyber attacks were reported in at least 7 states, as I mentioned. Hackers targeted about 30 water systems, forcing some utilities to issue boiling water notices and switch to manual operation. U.S. intel agencies, they've assessed that Iran was likely behind the attack, though investigators are also probing whether the actor tried to appear Iran-based to stir the pot amid the ongoing U.S.-Iran conflict. So now here's where it gets political. President Trump, speaking to reporters, he blamed Minnesota Governor Tim Walz directly, saying, quotes, "I think I blame it on Minnesota because they're grossly incompetent. They like to say, oh, it's Iran. Iran should be so lucky." Meanwhile, CISA is urging every water utility in the country to disconnect their industrial control system from the open internet. The good news, if there is any, Minnesota officials say that there's no indication that breach contaminated any municipal water supply. And so, Germar, I've got to ask you, what's a programmable logic controller, and why is it apparently the soft underbelly of American infrastructure?
I mean, it's us using technology in order to be more efficient, in order to using technology to do our jobs better. And I say better in air quotes, but to help us to become more efficient. And this actually takes me back to one of the stories that we talked about early on. They've asked these water systems to unplug from the internet,
Hmm.
um, in order to do that, you have to be able to operate offline, be able to operate without the assistance of the technology that's been put in place. So again, this goes back to, those students that are studying, make sure you understand what you're doing and you're using the tool to enhance what you're doing rather than using the tool as a crutch, so that when you have to go offline and to operate without the technology that's in place, you're able to do that and do your job and do it well. But yeah, again, it's the good and the bad. You plug in order to help yourself and improve what you're doing, but there's also the possibility that you're also online and others have access to what you're doing as well.
Has critical infrastructure like water, has this always been this vulnerable, or is this a new class of threat?
I think it's been vulnerable for a while. I think within the last 10 years, we like at least 10 years, a lot of our infrastructure has been online and it's been connected. But I think that yeah, I think it's been a little while since it's been online. I think we're hearing a lot more about it as AI is become a topic of discussion. Yeah.
When I first heard this story, I couldn't help but think about uh, municipalities like Flint, Michigan, like
Mm,
Jackson, Mississippi, that have very well documented challenges with their water infrastructure, for
right.
communities of color that are disproportionately served by underfunded municipal water
Mm.
systems. What does that mean for folks who are more exposed here?
Yeah, so I wonder if because some of these places are underserved, if they are using all the technology that's available, and if some of them may be already operating offline, meaning that they're in less danger. So I think about it in both ways. It's like, because again, the more technology that you have, the more exposed that you may be. So this may be a situation where, and I don't know this, I'm gonna have to read up on that afterwards. That's definitely a question, something to look into.
Yeah, and something that folks are looking into now is NYPD's high-tech hunt for a
Yeah.
paint protester. I'm not sure if you saw this story, but Jamar, this is another story about how surveillance technology gets pointed and at who.
Yeah.
Apparently, a pro-Palestinian protester splattered red paint on Columbia University's alma mater statue, and NYPD investigators responded by deploying an extensive array of high tech surveillance and investigative tools, including networks of surveillance cameras and facial recognition software, all to identify the suspect. The activist, Jakai Isaiah, whose legal last name is McCrae, was eventually charged. And here's the part that should raise eyebrows. Documents obtained by The Intercept show that NYPD investigators, they appeared to have abandoned the case at one point before being spurred to reopen it by federal officials, with both the ATF and the U.S. Marshal Service participating in separate federal investigations into the same activists. And for context on the actual damage, Columbia claimed thousands of dollars in harm to the statue, but maintenance crews cleaned the paint up almost immediately, and
Mhm.
student photographs, they show that it was gone by the end of the day. And so, from a data standpoint, Jamar, what does it actually take technically and financially to run facial recognition against surveillance cameras networks like this?
I think this goes back to a topic we discussed a few weeks back. I mean, a lot of these systems are interconnected. So, and you're able to pull, and a lot of these municipalities and apparently the university and the city, they are connected and they're using each other's data in order to zero in on folks that they want to capture or to charge. And this facial recognition information and the mapping is interesting to me because a few years back, I remember hearing all about how China was using it, and plugging it into a social score. And this feels a lot more like some of the things that a lot of folks here in the U.S. were criticizing China for doing. Yeah, it definitely kind of has that flavor to it. So yeah.
Germar, what should protesters of any cause, understand about their digital footprint before they show up to a demonstration in 2026?
Yeah. So technology can be both your friend and your enemy. Carrying your cell phones, I think we talked about it a few weeks back. They have the ability to figure out who was in a location, who was protesting by the technology that you're actually wearing and you have with you. And as we can see here, this facial recognition technology is out there. It's being used. It'll be used to track folks down and to prosecute. And I think folks should understand that. And also, they're not just using it in the moment. They are creating databases. I'm more than sure that there are databases being created, and information is being added as they see protesters in not just one location protesting, but in other locations protesting. And it's going to be networked. It's not going to just be in New York City. If you're protesting in St. Louis, I'm sure there's going to be the ability for them to actually create a log and to track that data.
If you're a civil libertarian on the right that's worried about government overreach, and a civil libertarian on the left that's worried about protest suppression, where do those two people actually agree here?
I think they both agree that our government should not be doing this to us. Should not be using technology to, number one, to quiet our voices. But then for those that are on the right, this is big government in every sense of the imagination. This is big government, big brother, watching and tracking and keeping your information and using it not for your benefit. So I think there's agreement on both sides of the aisle on this one here.
When we come forward, Germar, we want to get your reaction to a Washington Post investigation that's making a lot of people's blood boil on how predatory trade schools have drained $300 million meant for our veterans. More when we come forward. You're listening to KBLA Talk 15.